Yeah, I love to see how that was. Smaller than I know. Yes, yes. Yeah.
Randy,
Yeah.
how are you?
Good.
Good.
Maybe
I have a question. Yeah.
right.
So first off, I didn't know today was going to be broadcast, so I'm just one of the speakers. So
Yes, I'm sure.
well, so I just found out.
Okay.
So I'm going to be talking about the family a little bit, and for the sake of their privacy, is there a way to either not Zoom that or certainly not record that?
Oh. I don't think so.
Okay, then I won't talk about the family.
Yeah. Well,
No.
I think the stuff's already been out there.
I know, and
Publicized.
I don't know that was really fair.
Okay, well then don't say it.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted this film, so
So you're zooming it,
yeah.
doing what
Right
you're
now.
told. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm not presenting, I'm just manning the Zoom.
Okay, good. But you can, whoever's going to turn this on, I have to talk about this. My son's game, so I
Okay,
didn't offend anybody. Thank you.
I'm not seeing Lisa Curtis. Who was the first one.
So I'm still-
Melanie, can you turn the camera on?
I can hear you.
Melanie, can you?
Yeah.
There you go.
Hi, you.
Hey, you.
Would you prefer to have your camera off while Lisa is speaking, or what do you want to do? Yeah, I think we should, because
Okay.
only because you've got a big, you're up on the wall.
Yeah, just turn the
Oh,
camera.
I don't want to be on the wall. Okay.
When it's your time to talk, you can turn the camera back on. Super. Thank you.
So there's Lisa. Do you think we're going to need a microphone? Yeah, okay, great.
Somebody turn the lights on.
And Lisa, Randy, you okay.
Good morning. I'm going to invite you to grab your coffee and find a seat so that we can honor your time and our speakers' time. Delightful to see so many of you. We're so excited about this morning in honor of the 125th anniversary of Here we go, marching into the future. So the way today will work is that we're going to start from sort of the macro level. And we're going to hear first from Lisa Curtis, who many of you know is a parishioner. And she has 30 years experience of helping to shape policy in Southern Asia and Southeast Asia. And she's going to give us the overview, the kind of contextual understanding of how we got to where we are welcoming many Afghan refugee families and individuals to the US. So without further ado, Lisa will talk, and if you have any questions for her, we can answer them at the end, and then we will shift to our next speaker. So Lisa.
Thank you so much, Mother Ann, and thank you all for joining today. I want to keep my remarks relatively brief because we have two other excellent speakers with a lot of information that you'll want to hear. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah. Good.
You have to hold the mic right up to your mouth.
Right up? Okay, yeah, here we go. Got it. So as Mother Ann mentioned, I've spent most of my entire 30-year career focused on South Asia, and I was particularly focused on Afghanistan over the last 15 years. And as National Security Council Senior Director for South and Central Asia from 2017 until January of this year, I traveled frequently to Afghanistan, and I was actually involved in many of the negotiations with the Taliban that have taken place over the last 2.5 years in Qatar. Now, I actually go to Qatar and Uzbekistan this evening, so I'm glad I have this opportunity to be here this morning. But at the think tank where I'm at now, the Center for New American Security, we're actually doing a project on Afghanistan that will culminate in a report by the end of the year, which is on U.S. policy recommendations for how we can support the Afghan people post-U.S. troop withdrawal. So that's why we're going to the region this evening. So the current situation in Afghanistan is not a failure of any particular U.S. administration or any particular political party or of any one U.S. general. It is a national failure. And many of us who have worked on Afghanistan, including myself, need to take time to reflect on what led to the situation in which the Taliban were able to roar back to power so quickly. And we have to do this rushed and chaotic evacuation. So as I said, I think each of the 4 U.S. administrations that have been in power since 2001 have made mistakes that have led to this situation that we're in now. But I don't believe that any of our leaders or military commanders had any ill intent. If anything, I think our biggest mistake may have been in overshooting, trying to do too much, and pouring too many resources into a country that did not have the absorptive capacity to use them effectively. This created circumstances in which corruption flourished. I think the other major problem was that no U.S. administration was ever able to do anything about the sanctuary the Taliban enjoyed in neighboring Pakistan. And that wasn't for lack of trying. In fact, the Trump administration in January 2018 cut all U.S. military assistance to Pakistan. But Pakistan remains committed to its policy of supporting the Taliban. And the reason it does that is because it fears more Afghanistan India to its east. So it believes if the Taliban is in a position of power in Afghanistan, that will help keep India at bay. So it's a very complicated regional problem that drives Pakistan's populations. Now, I do disagree with the way President Biden handled the ending of the war. I think the withdrawal was too abrupt. I think we didn't need to pull all 16,000 contractors at once. And I personally supported keeping a small U.S. presence in Afghanistan that would have been supported by our NATO partners. However, you know, we are where we are, and it was the president's prerogative and his decision to make. And I do think that President Biden did make an important point when he provided his speech on the Afghanistan withdrawal in the end of August. And he said that moving forward, the United States needs to focus on achievable objectives when seeking to protect our national security interests. And I think that's a very wise statement. So even though I worked in the previous administration, I did not support the way in which the negotiations were handled. And I disagree with the Doha agreement that was signed in February 2020. I believe the U.S. negotiator made too many concessions to the Taliban too quickly. He was in too much of a rush to conclude any deal, a deal. And in some ways, no deal was probably better than a bad deal. And I say that because not only did that deal fail to establish a peace process, a meaningful peace process, but it weakened the Afghan government and it undermined the morale of the Afghan security forces. They simply saw the U.S. as switching forces to the Taliban. And I do believe it did contribute to the quick collapse of the Afghan forces that we saw in August. And I think this weak negotiating style that was done over the last couple of years has made our job more difficult now because the Taliban hardliners are empowered. And when you have a situation where the leader of the U.S. designated foreign terrorist organization, a person named Sirajuddin Haqqani, which heads the Haqqani terrorist network, is named the Interior Minister of the government, well, it really doesn't get any worse than that. So the United States, in my opinion, should absolutely not recognize the Taliban government that includes a known terrorist leader with American blood on his hands. However, we cannot simply wash our hands of Afghanistan, and we cannot wish away the continuing terrorist threat that still exists and is likely to grow with the Taliban power. Now, we do need to keep communication lines open with the Taliban, and I support the fact that the Biden administration just last week in Doha did sit down and have meetings with the Taliban, because we have to get our U.S. citizens, our remaining U.S. citizens, and our Afghan partners who still need to safely evacuate from the country. And we need to prevent a humanitarian catastrophe. You have a situation where, all of a sudden, $9 billion in assets is frozen. This is money that was moving through the Afghan economy. 70% of the Afghan budget was provided by international assistance. So, we don't want a situation where all of a sudden the economy is going to collapse. So how do we avert economic collapse without supporting the Taliban government? Thank you. There is an immediate need to get cash into the system to pay the salaries of all the civil servants as well as NGO workers throughout the country. And the aim should certainly be to bypass the Taliban. We don't want our money going to the pockets of terrorists, but we should not be so rigid in finding a solution that we end up allowing Afghans to suffer. We should allow the United Nations, which is still operating in the country, and established international NGOs, ICRC, Save the Children, and others, which have been operating in Afghanistan for years, help them to find a solution. And there's actually one solution that was presented in congressional testimony just last week. It was by a person named Adam Smith, who was a trade lawyer, who actually worked at the Treasury Department during the Obama administration. And he suggested holding dollar auctions through a private bank. This is one of Afghanistan's private banks, the Afghan International Bank, which is not yet infiltrated by the Taliban. and sort of use that as a card out to be able to run the cash through that one bank, paid out directly as salaries to people who need it. So this is one option. These are the kind of creative solutions that we need to be considering. And I think we need to coordinate closely with our like-minded allies, countries like the United Kingdom, Europeans, so many who have invested in Afghanistan. It's not just the US, even though of course we have invested more blood and treasure than any other country. We have partners, and we should be working with them to condition our assistance to the Taliban on it meeting certain human rights and counterterrorism conditions. And I think this is the best chance we have for shaping Taliban behavior moving forward. So let me talk a little bit about the current situation, particularly for women, which everybody is concerned about. So the early statements coming from the Taliban all were very positive. They were saying the right things. They were saying that women would be allowed to work, young girls would be allowed to go to school, there would not be retaliatory killings against those who supported the previous government. However, what we're starting to see play out is not really living up to those commitments. Women have been told to stay in their homes. They've been banned from sports. They have been told that they can only attend all female university classes if they're in university. They are preventing young girls from attending school beyond the primary level, and female police officers are being threatened. So bad things are happening at the local level. And I think this is why it's important for donor countries to make clear that the way the Taliban treats women and girls moving forward will impact their access to international finance. Let me talk a little bit about the counterterrorism challenges. We should certainly be investing in counterterrorism partnerships with surrounding countries, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, who are worried about terrorism coming over the borders. So we should certainly be working closely with them. We do still need to rely on Pakistan for overflight, because the only way to get our military assets that are in Qatar, if we need to Afghanistan, we have to use Pakistani airspace. We can't use Iranian airspace. And of course, Afghanistan is landlocked. But we should certainly keep our expectations low of Pakistan, which I've already explained. And I just want to say one other point on the terrorism issue. President Biden is right that Al-Qaeda has metastasized and is in many different countries. However, if you look at Afghanistan, Afghanistan offers Al-Qaeda unique advantages. Now, Afghanistan is run by an extremist group that has been partnering with and fighting with for the last 40 years. There's been intermarriage between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. So they really have advantages now in Afghanistan. In 5 years, they're going to take advantage of that and rebuild and reestablish their base in Afghanistan. So we certainly need to continue to monitor that situation. And I think it would be foolish to think that the Taliban are going to fight Al-Qaeda. They're not going to. They are likely to fight ISIS-K. ISIS-K is the local branch of the Islamic State, which of course came out of Iraq several years ago, but set up a base in Afghanistan in 2014. That's also a concern to the United States. It also happens to be a group the Taliban doesn't like. So they will fight ISIS-K. But what I'm saying is our concern should be about Al-Qaeda, which they're not going to deal with. So all of this is depressing. This is hard. This is heavy, especially for people like me who spent their careers on this issue, especially for U.S. service members and their families who have served in Afghanistan, lost loved ones, for aid workers, diplomats. It's been a hard last 2 months for everyone. But as a Christ follower, I am implored to have hope and to not give up on trying to help the Afghan people. And we do get some good news every now and then. For instance, just this morning, I wrote to a text where I was trying to set up a meeting with a young woman who studied at the American University of Afghanistan. She and several other women were able to get out of Afghanistan, and they were living in Qatar. And we were going to meet with them on Wednesday. And she wrote me a text and she said, actually, we just found out we're flying to the United States on Wednesday. So, these are the people that we need to welcome. These are the people that we have fought and died with over the last 20 years. These are the people that we empowered. We, led them to think they can have a different life than that under the Taliban. And so I think the least we can do is embrace them as they are coming to the United States, restarting a new life. And so that's what our next speakers are going to talk to you about. So I just want to end by saying thank you for being here. Questions for Lisa before we move on.
Pakistan is so intent on supporting Taliban.
It is, but it's hard to grasp.
Okay, better?
Speak up.
Okay, if Pakistan is so intent on supporting the Taliban, they presumably also intent on, preventing it from collapsing. So what's their role in this situation?
Well,
Let's
you're
give this
talking
back.
about, okay. Yeah, I think you're saying that they would want them to collapse the Afghan state, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they don't have the resources that other countries have to support. Other countries, I'm just gonna yell.
Yeah.
Other countries have been providing international assistance, like I said, supporting 70% of the Afghan budget. The Pakistanis have not been providing that kind of assistance to the Afghan people. So that's really not an option, for them to keep helping the economy. And I think the biggest problem is that Pakistan actually supports the hardline parts of the Taliban. This is the Haqqani network that I was talking about, the terrorist organization that is actually part of the Taliban and is now part of the Taliban government. So that's what I'm saying. We have very different objectives in Pakistan when it comes to the future of Afghanistan. And we just have to remember that, that even though we rely on the airspace to be able to do any military operations that we might have to do against terrorists that might emerge, we should not for a second think that they're going to be on the same page as the United States. Yeah. Yes.
I come from I grew up in a military family, and I see people, from Vietnam to Iraq, etc. So we try to go in and we say we want to break with democracy. I think that's fine and fair. They have their own culture, their own way, and they cannot live on an economy based on rapid resources subsidized by the United States.
Is there a question, Sabina?
The question is, when will the State Department deal with the industry stateside that promotes war in these countries and greater militarization of our forces in these countries? When will you look more toward, instead of nation building, toward reining in those forces? You don't have any influence on that at all.
Well, okay, so of course we went into Afghanistan because the 9/11 attacks were perpetrated by Al-Qaeda, which had safe haven in Afghanistan. We requested the Taliban to hand over Taliban. They refused. So I think it was the right thing to do to overturn the Taliban government who was supporting our enemies who just killed 3,000 people on our soil. So that said, there probably were some mistakes made along the way, but I think that recognize why we went in the first place and not berate ourselves, because there was good reason. Now, we can talk about corruption, some of the things that went wrong. But I don't know of an organization that's promoting war in the United States. I'm not sure if you're talking about a specific organization, but what I see is, I see that, you know, we can focus more attention on our diplomatic tools, our economic tools. I grant you that, and I think that's what I'm sort of arguing for moving forward in Afghanistan.
I don't think we have a good judge no more, but we do have, when you have, and I'm not.
Sabina, I'm sorry to cut you off. We need to move on. We've got another speaker. Thank you so much, Lisa Curtis. There's Melanie Gray. Melanie Gray is a dear friend and former colleague of mine. What's going on with this?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Dear friend and former colleague of mine from Christchurch, Alexandria. She is the director of outreach and mission there. And the reason why I thought it would be important for us to hear from Melanie is that Melanie has helped shape a robust refugee ministry at Christchurch and connected to all kinds of other churches and synagogues. And they have sponsored, supported, worked with over 30 refugee families since 2016. Is that correct, Melanie?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Melanie.
So much for having me. It's an honor to be here. And more importantly, thank you for taking on this role with these families. It's a very brave and can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. I think some folks on Zoom are not on mute.
Yes, I know. We're working on it.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody that's zooming in, please put yourself on mute if you haven't already.
I'll warn you, I have a small puppy at my feet who I can't put on mute. So if you hear little yelpy yelpersons, it's a puppy who wants my attention, and I apologize. Yeah, so thank you for your faith community taking this on. I feel like Lisa gave you the most macro view of this, and then I'm going to take you deep dive down into the micro world of it. And you probably are going to have questions that are in between that I may not be able to answer. But I think I'll start with resettlement in general, because I think it's important that you understand that in typical times, we have 3 resettlement agencies in Northern Virginia. And when families are resettled here, they are eligible for 90 days of SNAP benefits, Medicaid, case management, a housing allotment, etc. So in 90 days, families were expected to be self-sufficient. Our ministry was born in 2016 out of recognizing families indeed were not self-sufficient after 90 days. And it really didn't matter what their background was. We had a doctor, we had an architect, we had an engineer, we had a housekeeper. It didn't matter what they had done in Afghanistan. It was the fact that they're here now and nothing academically would translate. So that's how this ministry was born. And it was not born of sponsoring, actually. It was born of multiple faith communities surrounding these families and learning sort of as we go along. So I come to you today with a person with expertise, but I think it's really important you keep in mind the family ultimately is the expert, and you're seeking to gain expertise at this point. So today, the people who are being resettled, they will actually be eligible for benefits, but the circumstances, as Lisa described, are remarkably different. And the urgency is remarkably different. So I think as you seek to gain expertise with the families you're working with, you're going to really want to have a team of people rallied around the families, because they're going to have their practical needs, and that's kind of the easy part. And it gets complicated after the practical needs. Food, clothing, shelter, in some ways, are easy to provide. They are transactional. They are not the level of intimacy you're about to encounter, I think, once you enter the world of a family. And it's really important to keep that in mind. So if the question, what does it take to host or to work with and surround a family? It takes a lot in my mind. And so the quicker you can build a team and define roles and course correct on a regular basis, knowing you're going to stumble and you're going to get confused, and that you have people like me who are here, you can reach out to me and my team, because it's complicated. Think about your own family. And if you were to be your family plopped in another country and having experienced the kind of trauma these families have experienced, and then a whole group of people surrounded you and wants to help you, that would feel lovely probably, and really scary. And so I think at the foundation of building this relationship, it's really important that you talk less than they do, that you get to know who they are, you get to know their hopes and dreams, while at the same time, you are the experts on life in America. So helping them set realistic expectations is part of the role. I know in my experience with the families we've worked with, often there are expectations that are unrealistic. For example, to get a car in a really short period of time. What we learned is that people in Afghanistan drive really differently than they do here. So just learning how to become a safe American driver, learning about one-way streets, and learning about the way DC is designed, all these things were a real learning curve. But not only that, just the sheer cost of a car, the cost of the insurance, the cost of gas. And is it something you really need? I mean, this is just an example of a conversation where taking public transportation, we live in one of the best areas of public transportation. So is it better to help a family orient and empower them to use public transportation, for example? So I think these are just some examples, but I think in defining your roles, one of the roles that we rely on heavily is the role of the administrator with compassion, I should say, because someone at the end of the day has to deal with the financial pieces of this and the bottom line decisions. And that can be done with love and warmth. But I think having a specific person in that role has definitely benefited us. The other piece that we should keep in mind is that when you're in a helping relationship, you're automatically in a position of power. So thinking about how you can give that power away, often that's through asking more questions, gathering more information, stepping back, slowing down, and setting healthy boundaries, because this kind of work can often attract a person who wants to feel like a savior. Let's face it. We all have a little piece of that in us. And I think we've got to recognize that. We have to talk to our team about it. When we're tempted to do something, one of our care team members recently took a family, 6 kids, to a pumpkin patch and let each child pick out 3 pumpkins. And she was so excited until she got home to their tiny little 1-bedroom apartment. What do you do with 18 pumpkins? So her heart was in the right place, but the boundary wasn't there. And it's fun to indulge. And when as Americans, we do that. So that's part of what the team does. It's that we check each other, not judge each other, but check each other, talking through, setting goals with the family. All these things I think are just critical. And admitting to the family you don't know something and asking them their input. I think those are really key things. I'm trying to think of other. I think in our work with our families, we've learned that after the resettlement, which is 3 months of support that I mentioned at the start, it took about 5 months for the average family to become financially independent. Now, that was with a lot of support from the team. The team was working on resumes. The team was getting people enrolled, family members enrolled in English, getting kids enrolled in school, getting kids immunized. And then not forgetting about things like we live next to the Smithsonian and it's one of the most amazing places in the world. So all of that was part of the infrastructure that helped the family become self-sufficient. And I will tell you, of all the families we've worked with, none of them wanted to be dependent on us. All of them felt very, very proud when they became independent. And they wanted to maintain the relationship because that's the way we had established it, that this was not for the short term, it was indeed for the long term. And I mentioned to Anne, we have over the course of time had 3 families who did not meet us in the middle. And by meeting us in the middle, that means you're working as hard as we're working toward a common goal. And that's essential for this to be a success. Knowing that things will come up, things will get in the way, things like mental health challenges, post-traumatic stress, survivor guilt. These are all things these families are experiencing, particularly right now. And with those 3 families, we did have to separate from them because we couldn't maintain an unhealthy relationship where we were working this hard and they were working this hard. So I'm hoping that won't be the case with your families. And I'm just really excited for you to have this opportunity as a faith community. I know it's made our faith community stronger. The other piece that was important that we learned is that as Christians, we were being so careful not to impose our Christianity on them that we weren't letting them learn what it meant to be American. So what does that mean? It means that they still might want a Christmas tree and Christmas presents because they see that as becoming American. And all of our families wanted to learn how to make Thanksgiving dinner. So these are things we learned from them. So I say that to you in that also some of our families have enjoyed coming to church and speaking in front of the community, and it's meant a lot to them and it's been empowering. So I feel like I've talked a lot, but I want to just share with you our experience and also if you have any questions, but I'm not here just for today. I'm here for the long haul to be your partner. So thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. How fabulous. Any questions for Melanie? Rich, Barney, and then Rich. Here, by yourself.
How's this? Is this working?
Can you hear him? Okay, go ahead,
What
Barney.
about the spiritual dimension? Is it coming through there?
Spiritual dimension.
What about the spiritual dimension of these families? Can we assume that many of them are Muslim? And if that's the case, are the local Muslim community involved with integrating them?
Okay.
That's a really good question. Yes, all of them are Muslim, and they are of varying degrees Muslim. And I will say that we have not had an easy road finding places for them to worship. A lot of the mosques are run by Saudi Arabians, and there's friction there that we had to learn about. So there's a mosque in Springfield that's particularly suited to Afghan families, and I can give you more information on that. But some do not go at all for whatever reason. So it's a good question.
John wants to add something.
Just on our own, other families we have, there's a variety of expression of faithfulness and practice. And so I asked when we went by the AT&T store when we went to the AT&T store to get phone plans set up, there was a halal restaurant there. I said, who eats halal? And some said, I eat halal, and others said, oh, sometimes I eat halal, sometimes I don't eat halal. So I think there's a range of like you'd expect Christians, and so there is a general adherence. It is Sunni Islam, and then there's an openness too to our practice of faith, and a welcomeness to that we worship the same God. And I was clear with them that we're non-proselytizing. We're convicted in our faith, but we don't say any other faith is lesser than our faith. We're in this together. We can learn together, and it seemed like a real openness there. Amy, do you want to say something more?
Amy's going to speak. Rich wanted to say something.
Hi, Melanie, it's Rich. I appreciate Barney's question because mine was along the same lines, and I appreciate your thoughts. So to kind of take what he started with and then it's taken another step, are there ethnic communities or specific faith communities that we need to partner with as a faith organization as we help these families? As in, do you have regular contact with other Afghan, I would say, centric support communities in this area that we would need to work with as we go to help these families with resources?
It's a really, really good question. I think the most important partnerships you can establish are with, for example, workforce development is a Fairfax County organization that helps not only ready people for jobs and job training, but also they have access to things you would never know about. So I actually will give Ann and John a list of organizations that would be good partners. And I know I'm in communication with our Office of Community Services on a very regular basis. And again, that's around their benefits and ensuring they're getting all the public benefits that they're able to get. I think aligning with your resettlement agency is going to be really important. And if you could find someone on your team ultimately to be the liaison with your resettlement agency. And I offered to be, to make that first contact if you need me to. But through that, you really want to be sure, again, they're receiving everything they should receive from that resettlement agency, including good case management. The other faith communities we're involved with are really faith communities that have come to us who wanted to be involved. Now, I am also involved in several networks that I could connect you to. One is called VCCI, and I can't remember what it stands for. They meet every month, and they focus on resettlement in Northern Virginia. And in that sense, these organizations help you not feel alone because you're not going to have all the answers and be able to fix everything. So it's important that you make these contacts.
Melanie, thank you. That's so fabulous. Any last questions for Melanie before we?
One more.
Oh, my God.
So Melanie, I'd love to hear you describe, I'll look at you this way, at the owl. I'd love to hear you describe the structure of your teams. What are the roles and responsibilities that you have lined out that divide up the tasks among teams? And so that would be super helpful.
Yeah, sure. So our structure was born out of the sponsorship model kind of failing. And what would happen is a wealthy church would sponsor a family and be very robust, and a poorer church couldn't do that same thing. You know, we had interested parishioners, but they didn't have the money and the resources to support a family. So what I tried to do is pull together faith communities who had no resources, who had a lot of resources, but ultimately they had passion, interest, they were called to work with refugees. So it was 8 faith communities ultimately. And the design was that as families came in, they were assigned a care team of 2 or more people. Sometimes they were strangers from 2 different faith communities. And we would do a thorough sort of intake and assessment, but part of our model was that we would meet every month and discuss each family, both their strengths, their challenges, and what the goals were on the horizon. So the idea behind the model is that if one care team won the lottery and moved to Tahiti, that family was also your family. These are all of our families. And that way, it was healthy in that they were all taken care of. And part of the model too was to talk about our challenges with the families and our own personal, you know, it's going to bring up things like judgment and frustration and that type of thing. So that was part of our conversation. And then we also had volunteers who had specific skills. Like we had 2 women who loved to teach driving. So they weren't really part of a care team. They just taught driving lessons, for example. So let's see what else. Yeah, but the important thing was we came together on a regular basis to sort of debrief and plan. And I think that helped us all feel like when you have a team, you're stronger. So that was a little summary of our model.
Thank you. We'll hear more. There's some of us will be on a call with Amy. I don't think this is, I don't mean Amy, I mean Melanie, this Wednesday to learn more about how to structure our teams. Thank you, Melanie. You are welcome to stay or go.
You guys so much.
We are not.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, this is working for just a moment. All right. So let's grab it while we can. So our next speaker is the reason why we have these 2 families. God bless her. Amy Brown, who is a parishioner and a master gardener who produces tons and tons and tons of vegetables for food banks every year. No, can't hear.
Not hearing. Yeah.
All right. Amy Brown is about to tell us about how we came to these families, how these families came to us, and very specific information about them. And then we'll talk a little bit about ways you can get connected and help, and that will be Norma. So don't bother. No. No, ma'am. I was range officer. So. You can't hear me. You have a hearing problem. So let me talk a little bit about this family. I want to respect their privacy, so there's some things I'm not going to delve into. And if you have specific questions, maybe you can ask me privately, because I may not share that information here. They're lovely people. It's 2 families and they're related. They're 2 sisters, their husbands, and the children of one of the sisters. So it's a married family of 4, or a family of 4. The children are 2 years old and 4 years old. I don't. I will blast people out. Is there anybody who can't hear me? Yes.
Anybody, the people online, can they hear you?
Can they?
Without that?
Can you people online hear me?
You can send a text.
They're all muted.
Send a text if you, yes, somebody said yes, Melanie said yes.
All right, super.
If you speak loudly, and this is your microphone here, just so you know, multi-touch microphone right there. So, let's see how. Technical issues today. Okay, go ahead, Amy, talk loudly.
All right, so hopefully the people in Zoom land can hear this as well, and I'm sorry, I don't know if you can see me or not. That's okay. All right, so we have family of 4, soon to be 5, newborn on the way, ready. Bye.
The chat said it's hard to hear what your back was. Maybe stand behind that.
Yeah.
This meeting owl right here.
This is the microphone right here.
Yeah, microphone and camera.
All righty. So soon to be 5, baby on the way, should land any minute now. We're not quite sure when, and we're working on trying to figure that all out. And also a young married couple. And as I said, they're related, which is really terrific for them because they have built-in support, both for new mom and also just to get through this whole process. The adults range in age from 25 to 32. So we have some young folks here, and that's good because that means that they're probably going to be able to adapt and adjust to a new life a little bit easier than say I would at the age of 60 if my world had suddenly been turned on its head. It's also a challenge because maybe they don't have some of the resilient tools that we develop as we age. So that's something we're sensitive to. They are educated professionals. We have 3 lawyers and somebody with an MBA. And so from the standpoint of finding employment, that could be really super, right? They have a background, they're willing to go back to school and turn those degrees from the American University in Kabul into US degrees. And it could also be a challenge because, as Melanie said, their expectations and desires and hopes and dreams might be high, and what they can actually get a job as might be less than what they're used to. Some of them worked at in very high level positions in their own country. They weren't planning to leave their country, and so this is all a bit of a shock to them, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Everybody is healthy and well. We had one little challenge. We put them in a hotel. Turns out the hotel had bed bugs, so learning opportunity for us in picking a hotel for our next family should we need to do that, and things we need to be mindful of. Good news there's a high and a low for everything, right? Good news there is they just came from a camp where they had lice and all other things in the camp, and so they mastered the art of knowing how to get rid of bugs. In case you're wondering, it's wash your clothes twice, heat them, meaning put them in the dryer twice, and then iron them. And if that doesn't kill the suckers, you're in trouble. English speaking they are, and so we are very blessed. That is one hurdle that we don't have to overcome. We can pretty easily communicate with them all. The children are another story. They're going to have to learn English, but at 2 and 4, that should not be the biggest challenge in the world. They're still got malleable brains, unlike mine, for example. So, but I will say that some of them, their comprehension is not as good as their ability to speak. So in other words, you can ask them a question and you might want to speak in plain, simple English slowly. And I'm not saying as if they were stupid, but make sure that you're not using words that are idiomatic of English, American English. They may not catch those if you're talking to them. How did they come to be here? My goddaughter, who is an amazing 30-year-old. Sorry, I'm gonna choke up because she called me. She said, Aunt Jamie, I have 2 families and we need help. And I can't do it. Can you do it? And I said, I can't do it either. I'm one person. So I reached out to you guys, all of you guys, and you stepped up, and I'm really grateful, and I'm sorry for my tears. But more specifically, how did they get here? So normally what happens is when the people live outside the United States and want to immigrate to the United States, they apply for a visa from outside the country. And they go back and forth with the embassy and paperwork, and it can take a couple years. And a lot of money, actually, because they have to apply for the visas, pay for the visas. And then when they finally get the visas, they get that stamp and they come to the United States. Well, they're planning to, right? And so when they come here, probably they have to have savings, and maybe they've already planned on a job, or they've made some connections or something, right? Well, so many of these Afghan refugees had no idea they were coming. They were military members or worked for the government. They were committed to the future of the Afghanistan as the Americans, as Lisa said, as we sort of portrayed it. This is the future. This is the vision, and they bought into it. They weren't prepared to bail on their country any more than we would be. And but it's a choice of life or death. And for some of them, they managed to get on those flights and they managed to get here. And so they came, most of these evacuees came as what is called a parolee, meaning they don't have a visa. They are paroled into the United States. It's kind of like the old-fashioned notion of a military officer being arrested, say during the Civil War, and being released on his own recognizance, promising not to fight against the other side, okay? So in this case, it's not about fighting, it's about you're released, and your expectation is you're going to show up for your immigration hearings and you're going to work to become a permanent resident in the United States, or otherwise some legal status. So our resettlees are parolees, and as Melanie said, this is a status that comes with very, very few benefits. The initial cash payment that is allotted for them by the United States of America, the most wealthy country in the world, is $1,225. Raise your hand if you can live in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area on $1,225.
A day?
No. A day, right, yeah. So this is where your help and our help really becomes instrumental, because this is the kind of thing they get. Eventually they'll be tapped into, because Congress just a couple weeks ago passed a law that gave them the same status as special immigrant visa holders. Remember, they don't have visas, they're parolees. Gave them the same status as SIVs. And so that gives them access to some Medicaid benefits and to SNAP benefits and a few other things that otherwise they wouldn't have. In fact, they wouldn't even get that $1,225. So this is our help to them is phenomenal. It gives them the opportunity to really get a leg up in America and in this country and on their careers and on their future. And they're very, very, very grateful and very excited. And that leads me into another thing I wanted to talk about, and that is the cultural significance of their gratitude, right? In Afghanistan, for those of you who know that part of the world, hospitality isn't just, hi, come over for dinner and I'm glad you came and thank you for dinner. Hospitality is a network of obligation and commitment. The network of obligation and commitment. So we have to be very, very careful in what we ask of them, because they're obligated to us. So for example, if we were to say, oh, come to church, they might come to church, not because they really are interested, but because we've asked that of them. So we have to be very mindful of what we ask of them. And by the same way, they've accepted our we've offered our hospitality, so then we are committed to follow through on that. Right? We have some. I don't want to call it a burden, because that sounds negative, but we have a responsibility to them, because we've offered our hospitality. So these aren't foreign concepts to us, but to people from Afghanistan, this is part of the lifeblood of their culture. This is a part of the rhythm of their life. Another thing that's a part of the rhythm of their life is how they dress. Now, we've all been I don't know, what's the word I want?
The media has inflicted upon us a notion of why they dress modestly, why women go cover, or why men wear certain clothing. And a lot of that, especially from Afghanistan, has come across as being very negative. The Taliban made them do it. So what I want to share with you, and what I hope will go out in a link this week in the Comfortable Word, and give you a greater opportunity to read about it, is that these things are an insufficient explanation. So Afghanistan is a Muslim country, and part of Islam is dressing modestly before God. Dressing modestly before God, being modest before God. And part of that relates, especially in Afghanistan, maybe not especially, but in Afghanistan, it's very much a communal sense of modesty, right? If I wear nothing on my legs, shorts, for example, I'm essentially naked. I'm not modest before God, and I'm imposing that on you. I'm impacting your modesty. So we also should be mindful of their perception of how we dress. And I'm not saying we have to all cover, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we should be cognizant of why they dress the way they do, and how we dress, what message it might send to them. Okay. So for example, when I've met with them, I have always worn long pants covering my ankles, as I am today. And I've worn a loose fitting top with sleeves covering my bottom, or trying to. Most of my tops don't. Yeah, it's the top, it's not my bottom. So the way that I am dressed right now, I had to work hard to come up with this, right? But this is pretty typical. This is a modern, say, a professional woman's attire in Afghanistan. Some pants underneath, generally probably looser than mine, but pants underneath that cover the ankle, a top that covers the bottom, and it's not clingy and tight. The preference is to go to the knee or just above the knee. And then the scarf that a woman wears is intended, so you can see my top is, you can see part of me, right? Well, this is not modest in Afghan culture. So the scarf is in part to cover up the top part of a woman. It may extend down to her bottom. It may cover her breasts, but it's part of the modesty. Some wear cover over their heads. One of our families, the mom, she goes covered in public, but not in the, we're not talking a burqa here. She just has a drape over her head, sort of this kind of a thing, only she does it much prettier than I do. But it's very stylistic, and I've watched her style. There's a very distinctive pattern to the way she wears it. And apparently that's regional or tribal. Colors are modest. So a married woman, what do married women do in the United States? We wear a ring, and married men do too, but we wear a ring. No, I don't have one, so sorry, can't show. But they wear black and white often. Married women often wear black and white, and it's a status symbol. It says I'm married. I don't have to be a peacock anymore. Okay. Younger women or unmarried women, children, they wear more color. Okay. Girls start wearing shawls over their head about the age of 10, 8 or 10. So there's meaning and significance, and this is the importance of what I wanted to share with you. There's meaning and significance to their clothing, and it also is an expression of respect to us, and that's really important for us to understand. So if an Afghan were to show up your house and he was wearing blue jeans and a short sleeve t-shirt, that might tell you that he didn't have perfect respect for you. And if he showed up in his best clothes, that would mean he was showing respect for you. And you should also know that these rules apply to men as well. They have modesty expectations. They cover their bottoms too. Good to know, right? It's not just girls. And they wear loose clothing. So, yes, I can see I'm out of time. The only other thing I did want to touch on, just two other things, if I may, real quickly. Trauma, right? Our families have been through some trauma. I won't share the full history of that with you, but they have been through some trauma. And it would probably be a good idea not to ask them about how they got here, what their experience was like, how did they flee to the airport, and please don't ask them about who got left behind. There were people left behind, and they are at risk. And that every time we ask them, it brings it back up, right? So maybe we don't want to do that. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the Resettlement Agency, because that came up. We are in touch with the Resettlement Agency. It has been a challenge because the resettlement agencies are specifically designated by the federal government to help in this process with the Afghans, and they are overwhelmed. They normally resettle a couple hundred people a year or a couple hundred families a year, and they're being asked to do thousands. And so it is a challenge, but I've kind of been taking the lead on that, and they are as responsive as they can be. They're compassionate, they care. It is a challenge for them, and it requires patience on both ends. But they've done a bang-up job of, when we've had a need, we have a pregnant mom, right? We have a need for medical care. So they've done a bang-up job of helping us connect with that. So we are in touch with them.
Thank you, Amy. On to Norma. Does anybody have any questions for Amy or comments? Did you want to say something? Okay, Dottie first, and then Lisa.
And just know that everyone's welcome to stay for lunch. We have lots of food. It's great. It's a light lunch, and also children are invited to come stay for lunch as well. And there's a gluten-free table as well. Awesome. So just a reminder. And even if you need to get noshed right now on your way to go somewhere, feel free to rotate around and self-serve. We'll have Anne pray us into lunch in a minute.
Okay, great. Okay. Dottie.
Yeah, quick question. In some previous refugee situations, women have come over from very wealthy families where they may have worked outside the home, but they didn't really do a lot of housework or cooking or childcare because the family had help to do that. How equipped are these women at everyday living skills without servants?
I have been privileged to share a meal.
Oh.
They're good.
Okay, great. Lisa, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I guess I have a different opinion on the dress issue. And I think certainly when I traveled the region, I've lived in Pakistan and India, I dress conservatively when I'm there. When in Rome, do as the Romans. But I don't necessarily think that they expect us to dress like them when we're in the United States. And I don't necessarily think they will be offended if we dress how we dress. And I don't think if they choose to dress in jeans or a t-shirt or however they want to, I don't think that's a sign of disrespect to us. So I just want to put that out there that I have a bit different perspective on the whole dress issue. I think I agree that women who choose to dress conservatively do, for good reasons, and we should respect that, and that's wonderful. But there are Afghan women who don't necessarily cover their head or might choose to wear jeans. And that is not showing disrespect to us. It is what they are choosing. And I had an interesting experience when I lived in Pakistan, and we went to the shower, which is a bit more conservative than Islamabad, which is where the embassy is. And I actually wore, full shower kameez. I covered my head. My Pakistani friend wore jeans and a baseball cap. So let's just be a little bit open-minded, because they may come here and they may choose to, want to wear jeans, t-shirts, probably not shorts, but they may feel comfortable wearing different clothing. And even in Afghanistan, the women still all wear shower kameez, but men wear jeans. And So it's not all cut and dry. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
All right, lastly, and not leastly, Norma, God bless Norma Williamson, she has volunteered to organize all of the various different donations that are coming our way. So she's going to say 2 words to you, and then we can eat.
Yes, you'll be glad to know I do not have a speech, but I do want to thank all of you who have signed up to offer things to do and to give. Over 40 of you have. We have this wonderful list that I've been sorting out as best I can. Melanie mentioned the practical stuff is the easy stuff, so I've been doing the easy stuff. And at the moment, we have most of the basics for both families. One family is moving this coming week, so we're going to be dividing the stuff up that people have offered and assigning some to one family and some to the other. As those of you who have signed up for smaller items, you know, linens, kitchen stuff, lamps, you know, because I've sent you an email, we are asking that you bring those things to the Narthex on Wednesday so that we can sort those out here, and Thursday those things will be delivered by pickup truck. We have 3 wonderful volunteers with pickup trucks going to pick up the furniture on Thursday and take that over, and they will be in touch with you once we decide which specific items will be going on Thursday, and they'll set up a schedule of when they can pick those things up. So as one of you said in your email to me, it's like a giant puzzle and we're trying to fit together all the pieces. So if for some reason I haven't connected with you, or if you have questions, please let me know. I have not connected with the people who have offered to do things because we're not quite at that stage yet, except for if any of you, male or female, who have nice strong muscles would like to help move the furniture on Thursday, the people with the pickup trucks would be most grateful for extra help. And then we also have offers to buy things for the new baby. I'm asking people to hold on to that right now. The baby isn't here yet. And once the family is moved in, we'll get the stuff to them. But the most urgent things are, you know, beds, tables, sofas, and kitchenware for the immediate moving into the place. The other couple are not going to be moving until November. And we are very fortunate that one of the families here has offered to put them up for the 3 weeks between now and November. So that's a wonderful gift. And looks like as of this week, they'll all be out of the hotel, which will be just terrific. So any quick questions for me? I can stay behind and I have a piece of paper, can write things down if you have specific things, but just general question. Yes.
And on Thursday, you said you wanted help. What time?
Okay, well, if you are able to help, let me know and I will pass your name on to those in the pickup trucks. My guess is they're going to start in the morning. How long it takes, I don't know, because I'll have to go from place to place, picking things up and taking them over. In fact, I'm trying to look around. Are the people here who are the drivers? Yes. Mark, you want to stand up so people know who you are? Okay, and Amy also has a truck, and Linda Kahn also, she's in the back, has a truck. So those 3 people, if you are willing to help carry and tote, Linda, you can't do it till the afternoon, if I understand correctly.
12 noon, she said.
Okay, starting at 12. But
I actually have a second pickup truck if there's somebody who wants to drive.
if somebody wants to drive another pickup truck Thursday morning, here's your chance. Okay.
Carrie's waiting over there.
Yes.
We may not know yet exactly the time for the 21st, so I'll be in touch with you.
Okay. And by the way, the woman in the orange there is an angel in disguise. She has been doing all this incredible work getting these 2 apartments, and the apartments are walking distance to the metro and to shops, which, as Melanie was saying earlier, transportation, driving is a big issue, so they'll be able to be independent because they can walk to things. So it's a tremendous, tremendous gift that Carrie has given us. Questions, or we gonna go eat? Yes,
Laura, say-
all right.
Do we know if it's a boy or a girl?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
No, we don't. We don't know.
Boy or girl? That's my guess.
No, she told us that she didn't know, but her sister said that they originally was told it might be another girl, but they don't know, and they said either one is fine. They all come from fairly large families. They're talking about members of their families that have 7 kids. I don't think they're planning to have 7, but they come from large families themselves. Okay, anybody else? No? Okay, thank you all for coming, and here.
It just stays, Forum is a team, right? Everything we're gonna be doing is a team. So we need you all in whatever capacity you feel called to serve, going back to John's sermon. So also, am I right that there is a place for donations? If anybody wants to, give a little gift to thank our 125th anniversary committee for this beautiful spread that we're about to have. So let's pray. The Lord be with you. Gracious and life-giving God, we give you thanks for this beautiful, crisp fall day and for the gifts of these families that have fallen into our laps. May we serve them well. May we serve each other. May we find true and good and equal relationship. And we give thanks for all of the donations, financial and other, that have already come and that already will come and will more and more and more. Help us to serve you. Help us to keep us mindful of our power and the ways in which we reach out to others. Keep us mindful of those who have so much less than we do. And bless this food and us to your service. In your name we pray. Amen. Let's eat. Any food instructions?